Hello, I'm Paul Hefner, the owner of Finance Pals, and today I'm doing sort of a practice presentation for a presentation I'm giving tomorrow for a networking group I'm in called BRAG, or Business Resource Alliance Group. But as I was practicing for it, I figured I would just record it and post it on YouTube for everybody. So I hope everybody likes this. Let's share. So the presentation is 5 ways to be happier and healthier. Um, and let me move me so you can see all the cool pictures of my kids. Um, and a lot of these things are things that I have come up with over the last few years through the pandemic, through things trial and error. I'm going to reference the different people that have taught me things. So I've sort of hodgepodge, or I don't know the right word, but piecemealed all these different tools together. And they've really helped a lot. So I go to the next screen. It will let me. There you go. I'm going to close this. So, a bunch of surveys around like what makes people happy, or what most people want. This was an article saying what do people desire but can't seem to attain. And obviously happiness and money and are at the top of the list. This was their 8 from Forbes. I think this presentation is going to go through all the ones in green, and then I also added in healthy. And then when I think of what most people want, the therapist-y answer or whatever is to be love and be loved, but we're not going to get into the all those internal conflicts and things that people need to work through. We're going to focus on the ones in green. So let's get into the first tool, which is super simple, a gratitude journal. So I like this quote that I saw that basically when we express gratitude, it makes us feel good is the short answer. It releases dopamine and serotonin, and these drugs in our brain make us actually feel happier. I've done a couple different gratitude journals, and it started off with a course that I did that was put on by 2 friends named Zach and Derek, and that's sort of where I got started, and that was in 2019. There's also a book that my friend Chris Tower gave me, and I'll talk about that a little bit, which is around it was a whole book around writing gratitude in the morning and the evening. And when you write in the morning, the thing that I took away is sort of ask like, what would make today a great day? And it was interesting when I first started doing that. I was hesitant to say some of the things. I was hesitant to say like, oh, if I got this client, or sometimes it was even silly, like if I went for a run, it would have made it a good day. And because my schedule was so packed, I didn't want to say like, hey, I'm going to put this down in the journal because I don't know if I'll have time, and I don't want to be at the end of the day having to look at my gratitude journal and say, oh, well, I didn't actually go for a run. But sometimes just by having that thought, I would say, okay, it'd be 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I would say, you know what, I'm going to go for a run, regardless of if I put that in my journal for things that would make the day great. And then the daily score. I heard this from the Tim Ferriss podcast. I'm trying to remember the guy's name now. Jim, the guy that wrote Good to Great. Jim Collins. And so he does a daily score. So I've sort of combined all these two into sort of my daily gratitude journal, and I have included in a template. So it actually, for all of these things, I have created a template, a guide. I'll be sure to post this in the YouTube link, so anybody can download this guide and use it. So here is the first view of the template. So this is the way that the gratitude journal works. Again, this is for our presentation I'm giving tomorrow, so I sort of teed it all up for that. But you can see here, like I left some of my old ones in from 2019, which was really and one of them was doing this Prevail course, which was by Derek and Zach. And I just started writing things down after that. I don't remember when the course was. It was actually in December, but this is the date that I wrote down for it. And it said you could write down anything. It could be, these were all, really big things, getting a client, ran. But it could be something like, hey, I got out of bed, or hey, I watched this YouTube video from Paul today. All those things are enough to write down. something. And then, so this is how I started, just these two columns. And then after Jim Collins did his thing, I started the score, with -2 to +2. And then somebody else mentioned tracking by days of the week to see if on Mondays you're sadder or different things. And I haven't done a lot with that yet, but I have this formula here to track that. And so, yeah, I would say, if you're watching this on YouTube, pause it for a second and write down something you're grateful for. You can, you can download the template. Like I said, I'll put the link for that. And you can also write down your score if you're feeling like it. So it's interesting too. And as I did the gratitude journal, it was fun now because I can look back and remember this time. I actually was looking at my son Trip being comfortable and swimming. So this was in 2020, and now he's like swimming in the pool, completely independent. And that was a big milestone that he hit this summer. He just turned, well, I guess it's like almost 6 now. But he's so excited, and it was a big highlight that I had, recently that I wrote down in my gratitude journal. But it's fun looking back on some of these things, and it just breaks up your day whenever you can take a few minutes and just write down something. So I don't necessarily have the time to do it or things like that. If I skip a day, I think these, I skipped a day here and I don't have it all, but it's anyway. So that's the gratitude journal. Try it for 10 days. I think is what I had put here. And you can update this date right here, and it will update all these other dates. So try it for 10 days and see how you feel. See if, maybe your scores will be improving, or maybe you'll just, slightly feel better. You'll look back on what you wrote 10 days ago and not remember those things, but it'll make you smile. So this is the first thing to sort of start thinking through. I'm gonna go back to my slide, but, it'll start making you feel happier, and it just takes the edge off a little bit for when something goes bad too. Let's go to the next one, and I'll see if I want to do these in order. Yeah, so let me go do this one. This is helping me sort of get ready for tomorrow. So I think, after I'm in this thing, I would go to the priorities. And so the way this works, and this is from 2 different people that I've combined 2 different tools, but it's the same idea. So you list the top 5 priorities. Most people have something around health and family and work, and then something else fun, like, golf or opera or art or, whatever it is, going to happy hour. I have no idea what your priorities are, kids. And you list them off here of sort of what, what you're thinking. And there's probably, I should probably hide these other rows, but I think it's interesting just to have them and not really worry about it. The next part is to look at how satisfied you are with these things. So maybe your health, is you're feeling pretty healthy. Your family life is doing not that great, and you can update all these things for how satisfied you are. You could also, I've seen it also, people they do it with sort of how much time they're spending on different things, which I've heard arguments for and against, because you can spend really good quality time with your kids, but you're still going to work a majority of most days, and so it doesn't necessarily have to be that. But I think how satisfied you are with those priorities is a good way to start. And this is from 2 of my friends, Spencer and Brett, that taught me this tool. And so what it does is it does a few things, but it puts it onto this chart here, and it chart each one. I don't know why. Sorry. I think you can put a date down here. Oh, wait. No, it's going to keep putting that there, huh? Okay. Anyway, so I'll delete that. And it puts it here. And so what you want to look for in this first thing is it's sort of a balance. And that was one of the criteria on what people are looking for in their life. And so if, work is way up here, and, in this case, golf is way down here, it's like, well, that's not very, very balanced. In an ideal world, I think they would probably all be about, 7s or something like that, maybe 8s. I don't remember. Maybe they're all 10s. I don't know, but it's balanced, and it's not one thing is really happy and the other thing is really suffering, where you're choosing something over something else. And I like that idea. I also think there's times in your life when, work may be busier, and you can do that for a certain amount of time. There's going to be a trade-off and an impact to your family and friends. Yeah, I think that's just one way to look at it. The next way to look at it, this is from actually one of my my wife Emily, her friend Jillian, it's her husband Corey Cicchetti, who is a professor at DU, had this other way, and he said you should look at how you actually prioritize your life. So when you think back through your last week or your last month, how are you prioritizing? So maybe, in theory, you would love if health was number one or your family was number one, but then when you actually live your life and it's like, oh, whatever two things are in conflict, and your boss says, hey, can you do this email? You miss your kid's soccer game, or you are late getting home, or you or the other way, your boss says, can you do this? And you say no, and they give it to somebody else, and you have this fear that somebody else is going to be promoted, but in your priority list, if it's not syncing up, that's where you start to feel this sort of internal conflict. And so the way you look at it is it plots it over here. And so health is, this is how I listed it. And you obviously will choose your own, is ranked really high for how you want it. And then how you're actually living it is down here. And so the more that these things are, up and down like this, the more sort of stress and anxiety and just, I don't know, not feeling happy you'll have in your life. You want them all to sort of be straight across like this, where you sort of have it prioritized, or you're prioritizing it, sort of how you want to be. Let me see what other points there are on this one. So yeah, so it's when there's conflict, like when two things, you need to do things at the same time, which you choose. Corey brought up a point that work should not be in the top three. I tend to agree with that. He has his reasons. I think that when you look at all the happiness bloggers or people that write books or TED Talks and on the topic, I think having family and connection and friends and all those things, it helps you live longer. It helps you be happier. There's tons of different surveys out there of nobody's on their deathbed wishing they had worked more, and it's so hard because work has one of those immediate impulses where you just get an email or a call and you want to do it right away to make yourself feel valuable, and it's super hard. So anyway, so that's one. On mine, I tend to get more specific than just saying like family or health. I might say like my mom or my sister, or I might talk about Emily, or our kids. We have some, an 11-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I may prioritize our 1-year-old over our 11-year-old sometimes. And sometimes my priority list gets down to that level of detail. I mean, when our last third kid was born, we, she was my top priority. Emily and Sophie were my top priorities. And they had to be, but I had to readjust my priorities for that amount of time. Same for health. You can talk about exercise or nutrition or meditation or writing in your gratitude journal that you just learned about. All of those things can be priorities that you want to put in your life, and you want to see where those stack up versus everything else. Work, you can also segment into different things, and I think as you go back to this, you might see this and say, you know what, like if health is really your top priority and you're actually doing it down here, you might say, hey, I really need to do something to make my health feel better. And that's where I started to get with these questions is, what could you try differently? One of the things I like to do is whatever you're doing right now is sort of your habits and I call it your door A. And you always are going to choose it. So, when you, and I say it's exercise, when it's time to exercise, you might come up with an excuse, you might write one more email, you might do whatever else, just sort of delay it. And you could say, you know what, like, I'm going to try something differently. I'm going to, and I have some friends that have trouble working out, and they say, you know what, I might not work out, but I'm at least going to like put on my workout clothes, or I'm going to get out my workout clothes for tomorrow, or I'm going to try some step that will help change the process. I'm going to try something differently. This other bullet I need to change, and I'm not sure what I was going to say there. So I will go on to the next one, which is goals. Okay, so on the goal side, what this does is, however you rank your priorities, it then puts them across here to talk through, what is your goal for the next quarter? And then I also like to think about what is your goal for your dream life visualization or your 10-year goal. You can think about both those things, whatever sort of fits. I would do, all three, but I think the most important thing is the quarterly goal. And so we're coming up on the end of Q2 here. So this is a perfect time to plan for Q3. And I would think that, it's one thing you can focus on in the next quarter. So, for working out, I have some examples below which you can delete in yours, but, some of mine were, run a certain pace or eat healthier, eat more vegetables, or write in my gratitude journal. This one here, and I like to color code it. So I think everything starts out yellow. So here I did the Colfax half marathon. I did pretty good eating. It's all very subjective. It's just for you. But this one here, like I said, I was going to try to write the gratitude journal at lunch, but I did a very poor job of that. So I gave myself a red. And then you can carry these goals forward. So maybe this is a goal for this quarter, and you only get down to 12-minute miles, and then you say, okay, well, maybe I'll try for 10-minute miles, or I'm just going to carry the goal forward. I think it's good to only have one, even though I might have other examples where I have more than one, but the less you have to focus on, the better. And so then you go across and you do it for each of your priorities. So, what are you going to do for family for the next quarter? You're going to I was going to do some date nights for fun. I was going to have some summer vacations, work. I was going to try different things. Golf, which is, golf is not one of my priorities. I'm a horrible golfer, but I just listed here as an example. And then this is something else. I like to think of what are some of the motivators or different fun things. So it's funny, I listed off Jen and Trip back in 2020, but we have 3 kids now. As of 2021. But anyways, and I think of my dad sometimes as like when I'm thinking through of all these goals and life and happiness and priorities, it helps me think through, what I can be doing better and that I can be happy and excited about all these different things and have fun things to look forward to. Let's see what I had on the slide. Yeah, so it's starting yellow. It's okay. Yeah, I mentioned all these things, so that's good. Let's see what is next. Okay, so this is one of the, so after you have your priorities and you have different things, the sort of happy part of it, the moving into the healthy part of it, one of the things I was able to do over the pandemic is lose 50 pounds. And I did that mainly through eating healthier. I also exercised and did some things, but I think that eating healthier is the 80% of it. And the other thing that I did is I tracked my weight, and I had certain goals or certain things I was trying to reach. I had sort of deadlines, certain, when I was coming up on 1 year into the pandemic, or, from all those things, I put that as a date and said, by this date, I want to be weighing this or lose this amount of weight. And so I'm not going to get into all the weights, but the main thing that I'm bringing up here is you can do something to be healthier. You can track it, which is awesome. There's other things you could track, like, the amount of workouts you're doing. If you're trying to do push-ups, you're trying to run a certain pace or run a certain distance, you can track, like, oh, today I ran 5 miles. Yesterday I only ran 1 mile, and you can track sort of your progress. You can also do business things because I love tracking things. So I mentioned networking or your profit or to-do list and a bucket list, which are tabs that I've included on the tool. But anyway, yeah, so this is when I was eating really healthy, when I try to do like salads or vegetables at least 1 meal a day, and I would do like Cheerios or cereal for 1 or 2 meals most days when I was really trying to lose weight. And then a lot of times I would just have a small dinner. Portion size is huge when you're trying to lose weight. And green shakes. This is my daughter, youngest daughter, having a green shake, which is a smoothie with a ton of veggies and different stuff. I wrote a blog post about that last month, I think. And then into the tracker, it's really simple, but you just have sort of every Monday, you would put like a certain, weight that you weighed, and any notes, like here's some examples, like I ate healthy through the weekend, because a lot of people sort of eat healthy during the week, and then the weekend comes and they're out with their friends or they're celebrating or doing different things to eat less healthy. So this one, I noted that I ate healthy, and then I went for a ran on Sunday. This one here was this is just a couple of weeks ago. I just copied it over, but it was the first week of summer, and I ate lots of ice cream. And then we took a trip out of town. So there was just a lot of, or no, ice cream trips, I guess, trips to the ice cream store. But so I was jotting notes. So I can always sort of see. And when I look at my weight, the weights, the days, or the weeks when it goes up, is when I'm taking trips for the ice cream store, not on weeks when I'm, eating healthy on the weekend. And this is the tracker, but then I mentioned in the slide, when I first started doing this, I'm a numbers guy, so I would weigh myself 15 times a day probably. And I was curious, if I weighed myself and then went for a run, what would it do to my weight? Or if I drank a bunch of water, which, my wife does things related to bariatric surgery and different things like that. Just says it's all water weight, but I was just curious, if I drink like 2 cups of water, what does that do to my weight? What's my weight like in the morning versus the evening? All those different things. I was just curious how it fluctuated throughout the day. And then I came up with a certain time of day when I wanted to weigh myself. And so I do it in the morning after I go to the bathroom, and it's sort of consistent, so I can sort of get a good feel for my weight of how I'm doing day to day, and then I track it mainly on the tracker on Monday. Okay, number 5 is learn something new. So this one, this is going back into the the things that make people happy. It's sort of, to me, it's like engaging and learning and feeling like you're, I don't know, dreaming or living a better life. And so this is just a challenge or example of what I did. Is you can pick any topic. It can be business, it can be investing, it can be a hobby, it can be wellness. And then what I do is I do a Google and Amazon search for that. And I have an example. Actually, I have one here of communication skills. I think this is in the tracker as well. And so I Google it and say, how to improve communication skills or something like that. And then all these books come up on Google, all of them come up on Amazon. And then I jot down the book and I jot down the author. And some of them I will go out and find right away on Libby, which is our public library app. And some of them have, audiobooks. And I love audiobooks for free. And you can do that, or you can go to the library and do different things. And then also what I'll do is I'll Google podcast for this person's name. And then there's also, I can then listen to a podcast and see if I like the person or get, I don't know, I feel like I'll come to it in a second, but I feel like you get a lot of the main points of the author just by listening to a podcast, and that's super easy and free, and I like doing that a lot. I listen to the podcast on 1.5 speed, just because I think your brain adjusts to it. On this one here, what did I do? Yeah, it's the same thing as the slides, so nothing too impressive there. The last one is, after you're learning these things, I think it's interesting to try to remember what you learned, which whenever people give presentations, I always hear this, that basically everything that you see in a presentation within a week, you only remember 10% of it. There's a source, but if you Google it, there's tons of articles that will support, and I don't know the right percentages, but that's what this article says. And so sort of my takeaway from that is I try to take notes on whenever people are giving presentations, whenever I'm reading a book, whenever I'm listening to a podcast. It definitely takes longer, but by doing that, I feel like I retain a few more things. And the other thing that always made me mad is I would listen to a podcast, and then, a month later, somebody would be talking and say, hey, I would love to hear, or I'm trying to work on something, looking at the examples I have here. I don't know, maybe around, living an intentional life or something like that. And I would say, oh yeah, I just heard this one on podcast from Jim Collins. I'm just referencing this one second from the bottom there. And now I can go, and I couldn't remember what it was. I was like, I heard this really great podcast. I don't remember who it was. This was one on, scaling up. But, I don't remember who it was. I don't remember, how to find it. It would take me, an hour to sometimes to find the link and send them to it. But now I track, so what was the podcast? What was the main topic? What podcast was it? And then I have all of my notes off to the right, which I'll give an example, not of a podcast, but of just some, I think it was presentations. And so I think by doing this, it helps me, one, be able to find these and share it, which helps me remember it as well. But also, as I'm listening to it, I'm pausing and listening. And a lot of times I'll go back and have to listen to something 2 or 3 times. And I think that repetition helps me to maybe retain 11% instead of 10% or something a little higher. So I have a presentation here, and there's actually, so here's the presentation notes for this presentation. So when you're done, you can write down any notes you want about some of these 6 topics. So, whatever you want to write down of something that you learned in the presentation. This is a presentation that in this networking group that I'm a part of, the person who presented last time. So these are my notes. And so they might have a topic like diversity of prospecting techniques. And so they're talking about, like, you can do speaking, you can do telephone, all these different things, networking. So I take notes sort of down and across. I don't, because a lot of times I'm just typing as fast as I can. I'm sure there's lots of typos. And so, this one here, they're talking about having a system. So you can do the spin process, handler process, your own process. You want it to be repeatable. So I just take notes, and so I can look back through this and it's like, oh yeah, I need to have a sales process. So anyway, that is it for the presentation, I think. I also have in this tool a bucket list, which is sort of one of my old bucket lists, and I put X's. So it's pretty fun when you check off things in my to-do list. And so what I do is I have certain spreadsheets where I have, all of these different things listed off, and I have some spreadsheets that are just for one topic. Like my weight tracker is just its own individual spreadsheet. There's nothing else in there. Some of my to-do list is sort of its own thing. I have different ones for my business. And so you can do that, or you can sort of keep them all in one. And so I think that is it. So here are the main points. They're also in that presentation slide of the Google Sheet. And I appreciate you watching this. If you have any feedback or anything, I would love to hear it. If you have other tools or things, I would love to hear about those. And thank you. All right, have a great night. Bye.